Hey guys, how are you doing today? Today what we're going to look at best fit lines, okay? Lines of best fit. So what this describes is a scenario when we look at like a table and they're not going to make an exact straight line. It might have a general pattern. So for instance, it might, you have like an X and Y chart and you might have something like this, and whatever the scenario is here, you can see, oh, there's a general trend of it going in a positive correlation. So this could be many things like studying and grades, something like that. So the general trend is if the more you study, the higher grades you might get. And then you might have things called outliers. You might have that kid that says, well, I never study and I always get A's. Well, that kid's like an outlier, okay? Usually that's the general trend of it. So when we look at this, it says the table below shows data relating to the number of oil change every 2 years to the cost of car repairs. So for those of you who don't know, when you have a car every 3,000 miles to 5,000 miles, you want to get your oil changed. And that helps your car from breaking down and keeps your engine running smoothly and all that fun stuff. So this table shows we have these points, and it wants to label our axis. So the more oil changes you get, the better it is for your car. You can control the amount of oil changes you get. So the oil changes would be our independent variable. And then the cost would be your dependent variable. So we would label these, this would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth. And then we would have our values. My highest is 600, so I'm going to go up by 100 on each one of these. So once you're done labeling it, I want you to go ahead and plot all these points here. So I'll help you out with a few. So 3 oil changes would be 300. 5 oil changes would be 300. And you can just continue plotting them down in here. And I want you to start to notice a general trend is the more times you get a oil change, the less you are going to pay. Now, it's not a direct correlation where it was a straight line and all the lines matched. It's somewhat in a general form, and you can see the line as I'm plotting these, it goes down a little bit, okay? So once I'm done plotting these and you draw a best fit line, that would be a line that hits most of them. And this would be an example. So these would be all your plots pointed. And a best fit line is when I go through it, where can I go to hit most of the lines? So if I brought up a different line right here, you wouldn't want to connect the axes because maybe that's not the best fit line. And it has to be a straight line. You don't want a dot to dot. It definitely wouldn't be this. That's not a best fit line. So a best fit line is when I draw my graph, what is the best way to get closest to the majority of the lines? So the next thing we want to do is, are there any outliers? Meaning, if there's someone who got like 10 oil changes and paid $800, that would be an outlier because it doesn't follow the general trend. Now we could say this person right here is a possible outlier. So he got 2 oil changes, and he had to pay $650. So are there any outliers or clusters? Clusters are a clump of numbers together. So I would say like this is a cluster right here. And I could say a possible outlier. A possible outlier is 2, 650. Now, it's not a horrible outlier, but it does follow a general trend where it's not quite as close. And we could also say the same for this number right here, which is 3, 300. So 3, 300. These are possible outliers. They're not outrageous, but as you can see, it's a little far away from the data from my best fit line. And it says draw a best fit line. We already have one there. And I did circle the clusters there, so that also answers part B. So then what it does is describe the association between the number of oil changes of cost and car repairs. Is the association strong or weak? So the association is the more oil changes you pay, the more oil changes you have, the less repair costs. And I would say this is a pretty strong correlation. Sorry, they said association. Pretty strong association. And it's a strong association because the points are pretty close together. The points make a very visible pattern. And what do I mean by that? You can see that the points are generally going downward direction. It's not like, let's say I had points up here, and they're kind of just all over the place, but they kind of go in a downward way. That would be like a weak correlation. This is a much stronger correlation. All right, so let me erase all these, and let's go and look at the next part. It says, write a prediction equation in slope-intercept form that could be used to predict the cost of repairs. Y for the number of oil changes X. What does the slope represent in this context? And what does the y-intercept represent in this context? So what we need to do is when we look at our graph, I want to be able to choose values on here that are on the line. So like this point is on the line and this point is on the line. And I want to find the slope, the rise over run on these 2 points. Now I could go ahead and do the slope change in y over change in x and find the equation, but I can also just do rise over run. So I will go from 500 down to 300. So that's a down 200. I'm going to go to the right 1, 2, 3. So I go to the right 3. So my rise over run is down 200 over 3. And then I want to look at my y-intercept here. If this is 600, this is 700. This would I would predict is about 620. So that means total cost of repairs is down, what was it, 200? Down $200 every 3 oil changes, plus $620 to start with. So what does the slope represent in this context? Remember, it's change in y over change in x, which is money and what is it called? Oil changes. So the slope represents is you pay $200 less for every 3 oil changes you get. And what does the y-intercept represent in this context? So the y-intercept is how much I go up and down, and that would represent how much you would pay on repairs with 0 oil changes. All right, that's it. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me or your teacher. And if not, have a great day.